How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? Rick Adams, your producer and host for The Deadly Experiment, once again seen everywhere in Rhode Island and on YouTube. We used to be on livestream.com, but we are now available on YouTube under the name Rick Adams Uncensored. That's the name of our radio program on Republic Broadcasting. And also you can dial in The Deadly Experiment on YouTube and sign up for our channel, or just watch some of these posts that we have been putting up. Also, many of our radio programs are up there as well. Today, ladies and gentlemen, when we are taping this program, we are at the time of summer 2017. So you see this program again, you'll know it may seem a little bit dated, but nonetheless, the message is the same, the facts are the same, only the names have been changed to protect the innocent, as they say. We're at a time, a critical crossroads in America. We see and hear about terror everywhere now. It's not just in Europe, it's terror everywhere. We remember the so-called Bali bombings in Bali. Remember the Madrid bombings. Remember the London tube bombings going back to a number of years ago, a decade or more ago. Now we're hearing about more terror incidents across the globe. Most of them are called Islamic terrorists, so-called radical Islam, engaging in all sorts of mayhem and destruction and jihad against the people of Europe and the United States. Well, of course, that's a lie. That's not true. They're not engaging in terror at all. Islam, and I am not an Islamist, I am not a Muslim, I am a Christian, we do not endorse any other religion. But I will tell you that the whole idea, as we've shown on these previous programs now for a number of years, that Islam is the name given to this so-called terror network by Al-Qaeda and Mossad. That's right, your own government. And the government that controls these governments through intel. We've heard a lot about that lately. Fake intel, fake leaks, fake reports, real leaks, real terror, fake terror. It all comes from one city. Now, what is the city that we're talking about, the city of terror? Well, it's called Jerusalem in the Hebrew. The city of peace, ironically. That is the city that God says will culminate the end of this age. That we're living in the times of the end, there is no doubt. The whole world now is reeling from these fake terror incidents and real terror. Now, we separate the fact from the fiction, which are real, which are fake. You don't need real terror with real casualties in order to instoke fear in the hearts and minds of people across the world. And notice it's across the world, from nation to nation, continent to continent. People are living a life of fear and regimentation in the military sense of the word. Well, the CIA, way back after 9/11, that surprise and sudden attack in which 19 Arab Muslim hijackers managed to shut down the entire line of defenses for the United States, all of it, including the Pentagon's own system, which can repel any attack from the air or any attack from the ground. Heavily reinforced with 3 or 4 lines of defense and these so-called twin towers that just happened to collapse, allegedly from airplanes flying through them, not into them, but through them, which of course is a physical impossibility, as we have shown. So the whole business of 9/11 was predicted, going back to the 1980s, when one of the heads of the Mossad, Israel's assassination agency, Issa Harel, actually could see into the future, and he predicted that there would be planes flying into towers in America, in New York City. Wasn't that very clairvoyant of him? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't clairvoyant at all. He would have known because the Israeli government, under the Likud party, managed to be able to construct, along with American CIA, the British Intelligence Agency, and a number of others, including France, the nations where most of these so-called terror incidents have taken place, were able to launch what they had called the Project for a New American Century, primarily made up of radical Zionist neocons who said that we needed another Pearl Harbor type of attack to regiment the American people into action, to give legitimacy to invading foreign countries for the benefit of democracies. And then, of course, to have a police state in apparatus in store for Americans at the very same time. And haven't those things basically happened? We have the NSA spying on Americans. We have a new intel center, a massive multi-billion dollar underground bunker of intel going into effect right now that will spy on Americans to know who has the arms, who has the guns, who has the munitions, who has their priorities straight in the sense of being armed and protective of their freedom, just in case some of those radical Muslims may come to America and take over. Well, again, it's pretty obvious that we've been lied to. Again and again, the Iraq War was proven to be a lie based on false intel, based on reports in the New York Times by Judith Miller and Bob Zelnick of ABC News and others, who falsified their, shall we say, reports on what Saddam Hussein was allegedly or not doing. What he was doing was indeed threatening somehow the stability of the region and the world. And we needed to take him down. But first, we supplied him with the arms in the 1980s to wage a war against the people of Iran. It was the Iran-Iraq War. Iran never attacked Iraq, but under Saddam Hussein, who was a CIA asset, friend of Dick Cheney's, yes, vice president, and the Bushes, just managed to attack them, and about a couple of million people died over that. Civilians, innocent people, that now we have seen that number increase dramatically, not just in Iraq, now that it's liberated, but also in Afghanistan, where now we have increased troop levels, American troop levels, in what is called a never-ending war. Incredible, but we predicted it all. We told you all of this would happen on these programs 13 years ago. Now it's happening. So where did this idea of terror come from? Well, in the scriptures in the Bible, we know that in the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verse 16, we are told the serpent was the most subtle of all creatures, and he seduced Eve, and then he seduced Adam, and that means holy seduction. That means expartio, which we've shown you on these programs. It means sexual seduction into bearing a child. That child was Cain. And Cain murdered his brother Abel in the field. He brutally murdered him and then asked the Lord. When the Lord asked him what he had done, he says, "Am I my brother's keeper?" In a very cocky, typically Zionist mode. "Am I my brother's caretaker? No, I am not, Lord. But what hast thou done?" Well, the Lord knows what you've done. And then he said, "But I will be roaming across the earth, and there'll be a price on my head, Lord." He tells us that I will not be free, I will be killed. And God put a mark on his head to protect him, Cain, from being murdered, lest any man should find him and kill him and his seed line. His seed line. Cain went into the land of Nod and took a wife there and bore children and more children. Folks, Cain's seed line is evident today in the one city that we mentioned at the beginning of this program, the city of Jerusalem, where Jesus in Matthew 24 and 25 said the bad fig tree would be planted, and that final generation of 70 years. That generation began in 1948. Now we are coming on the year 2018. Once that happens, all bets are off. Time is running out. So let's go back in time now and watch these following video presentations showing who is a terrorist, who created terror, who created the very word of terror, and the timeline showing that these false attacks, even our friend Dr. Cass Ingram has shown you on his website, nodisinfo.com, how recent so-called terror incidents in the United States, and I'm referring specifically to Portland, Oregon, fit neatly into this matrix of evil from the Kenites in Jerusalem and Homeland Security. Right now, I want to give you the chance to watch the following video presentation, and then we'll come back for a summation at the end of these segments. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Pay attention.
Despite what the Zionist-controlled mass media has been spoon-feeding you for the past several decades, the roots of modern terrorism are not Islamic in origin, but in fact trace its roots to a much different culprit, one in which you would not expect. We go back to the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. It was a criminal act that this country was even formed. It was a colonial occupation and land theft from the beginning, taken through murder, terrorism, and built on the blood and ashes of the Palestinians. Zionists from Europe massacred their way through Palestine, killing and conquering, leaving massive pools of blood in their wake. An early example of such treacherous Jewish terrorism was the bombing of the Hotel King David in 1946.
After a bomb explosion caused by terrorists on the British headquarters at Jerusalem, one entire corner of the King David Hotel, a building of 7 stories, was razed to the ground. The stone floors were cut clean.
In scenes eerily reminiscent of New York 55 years later, the Jerusalem bomb was the beginning of terrorism as a media event, designed to capture the world's attention.
The latest casualty list included 65 killed, 47 injured.
The perpetrators, Zionist Jews, members of Menachem Begin's Irgun terrorist network. Begin, who would one day become Prime Minister of Israel, described this tactic as turning Palestine into a glass house, where the entire world was looking. The terrorist bomb was hidden in 7 milk churns and delivered in a hijacked pickup truck to the hotel's basement kitchen.
We jumped out and everyone took up their positions. I took the churn and started to run. I was thinking, how do I get to the place where I have to put the churn down? That's how I started. Anyway, there were lots of people around in the corridor, and we tried to move them out of the way. Here, there, to the side. But there were some who resisted, but we threatened them with our weapons. I wasn't dressed as a civilian or a soldier. I was dressed like an Arab, with a jalaba and a keffiyeh, with that ring on your head. You know, like, oh, what's he called? The leader of the Arabs. You know, Arafat. There were 7 churns, weighing 350 kilos in all. I ran until I reached the place where I had to put it down, with the churn on my shoulder. I carried on, until I got to the place where the British people were. I saw a pillar that used to be here, and I put the churn down and ran away immediately. I waited in my position until all the churns were together, and then the time would come for the explosion. All the churns together were like one whole man, a complete bomb.
The bomb went off at 12:37 and was devastating. But of the 91 dead, only 28 were British. 17 Jews died alongside 41 Arabs. Of all these, 54 were innocent civilians, unconnected to the British authorities in any way.
It's classic terror.
Fast forward to 1954, Israeli terrorists strike once again with Operation Susanna, now known as the Levant Affair. In the summer of 1954, 9 Egyptian Jews recruited by Israeli military intelligence firebombed American and British targets in Cairo and Alexandria in the hopes that it would be blamed on local Muslim activists. The effort was designed to sour the burgeoning relationship between Egypt, America, and England. the Israeli false flag terrorist plot would have worked if it weren't for one of the terrorist bombs exploding prematurely in his pocket, ensuring his capture and the roundup of the entire spy ring.
At 11, the Jewish man claiming someone spray-painted swastikas on his house finds himself in jail. Schenectady police say 54-year-old Andrew King spray-painted those swastikas on his own Chilswell Street home. King originally claimed someone targeted him with hateful messages, but police say that isn't true. Police say they charged him only after arresting him for harassment stemming from an incident last month. They say he threatened someone. He is in now the Schenectady County lockup awaiting arraignment.
We begin tonight with a surprising development in the story of those swastikas painted on the door of a student at George Washington University. Good evening, I'm Doreen Gensler.
And I'm Jim Vance. Turns out the student was painting the hateful symbols herself.
Now, the FBI was called in to assist after swastikas kept appearing on a message board, similar to a dry erase board, on the door of a female student, she is Jewish, who lived in Mitchell Hall. Now the university confirms that a hidden camera placed in the hallway confirmed the student who was the apparent victim did it herself. News 4 spoke to that young woman, who asked not to be identified, shortly after the hate-filled symbols began appearing on her door. Here's what she had to say at that time.
Who does such a thing?
I wish I knew. I wish I had any clue who this was, but university police, my house proctor, administrators, nobody can think of a motive of somebody who hates me that much.
Through the use of hidden cameras, interviews, and increased police patrols, we have concluded, and through a final interview today, investigators have concluded that the student who reported the incidents is responsible for the incidents.
Hate crime detectives have arrested 56-year-old David Haddad for a string of anti-Semitic messages here in Brooklyn and in Manhattan. Now, my police sources are telling me that he's also the prime suspect in a rash of swastika incidents and a phone threat made here in Midwood over the weekend. Police say Haddad is Jewish. Now, also, police say that he's a relative of one of the victims and knows another. My sources say he's also the prime suspect in these most recent Midwood incidents.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You have to see this, people. Portland is a hoax, and the accused stabber is proven to be a government mole and Zionist Jew, not a Christian. Since he's a mole, that means there's no way he stabbed anybody, and no matter what is said or what is portrayed, no matter how many tears are shed or not shed, no matter how many videos are uploaded, regardless of any testimony, regardless of what the police say, it's a fake. Not too many people seem to know that this is a fake, so the world has bought into it. It's a total hoax, proven here. Now let's have a close look and see what's going on. This post was facilitated and partially inspired by some great work by a couple of YouTube posters on the Notice Info channel, in which they revealed what had been stated in the video, which is that he's a mole. And they have brought some interesting information about the fact that all of them that are associated at the higher level, including the so-called victims, are government moles. And many of them are Jews. Namkai Mechi is actually a Homeland Security mole, demonstrated here. And then you have the issue of Jeremy Joseph Christian, whose real name is most likely Jeremy Joseph, who is a blatant COINTELPRO lowlife, who also says clearly that he's an Ashkenazi Jew, speaking Yiddish, as we will see shortly. Now, regarding one of the purported victims, Namkai Mechi, you can see the Kenite features quite clearly. No question that he's alive. He's an environmental engineer, or whatever he wants to do. He's off somewhere with a big payout, and much more to come. Meanwhile, there can be no doubt that Christian himself is a Mossad collaborator. While claiming to be an anti-Jew, or surely anti-Semitic, Joseph, aka Joseph Christian, is precisely the opposite. He, like Namkai Mechi, is Jewish. You can see his Kenite features here with his collaborator with the black scarf. And here, a Kenite, and a Zionist mole embedded into the government for purposes of stirring discord and discontent, as well as a distraction, as well as to control the narrative on behalf of the Zionist one world government, one world beast. This is a one world beast hoax. Let everybody fight and rise up against it. It's a total fake. Nobody died, nobody was injured, nobody was stabbed. It's a setup. There's no crime scene. The train was allowed to run again. There was no forensics. There was no hazmat. There was no blood to be seen, as was indicated either in the train or on the platform. There was no, as Blackwood says, that government mole number 2, there was no thick black blood that everybody could smell and see on the platform. All filthy lies. And here, Christian, aka Joseph, is supporting none other than Black Lives Matters. He says that it was shut down, and Black Lives Matters, a homosexual clique, is a George Soros Zionist-controlled narrative. And then, of course, he's making threats. He's going to punch out or kill or go after the Clintons. He's going to do A and B violent. Nobody but a government mole can issue violence on the internet and post threats against a current presidential candidate or former Secretary of State. Only a Zionist Jew can do it and get away with it. And he makes it clear he's a Jew. He makes it clear he's an Ashkenazi. While expressing this anti-Semitic viewpoint in his Facebook, he also is pro-Nazi, pro-Ashkenazi, pro-Jewish. It's all completely staged. Now you can see the staging here in the videos. So let's have a look and enjoy the process as much as we can. And you can see the staging, which is obvious. Now you hear that you're not with us. We're not associating with you. We don't want to be associated. Okay, did you hear that? Go back to the original Hebrew. Now look at the escort he has. Massive one. These might be legitimate Trump, pro-Trump protesters or what have you. Some of it's legitimate. So you heard him say, you're giving the Nazi sign and you're saying the N-word, and so we don't want you around here. There were some straightforward demonstrators there, and he had invaded the demonstration as an agent provocateur. You can see the rest of the staging in the video as you watch it. But here we have the screen captures. If you go back to the original Hebrew, whatever that means, he also says that he's all by himself. He's only one. There are no other demonstrators or protesters with him. He's draping the flag with 1776 as a prop. He's a Keenite, belittling the American freedom seekers. These people are attempting to disassociate from him. The police are there not to protect these individuals, but solely to act as agents on behalf of this Mossad agent. Here is the exact quote. I'm Ashkenazi, indicating I don't really know Hebrew, I know Yiddish. Nobody but a Jew is speaking that way. Here you have the final part of the staging, which you'll find on the video, of the smirk of the sergeant and then the team leaders, and why all the SWAT, not necessary obviously, and then pushing, gently pushing him, indicating it's time to go on. The SWAT continues to stay in protection, well armored with long guns. Regardless, what is he doing here? You can see he's a lone provocateur. Incredible the amount of taxpayer largesse that's spent to promote an agent such as this and to stage that. Now here's another interesting video where he's wearing a police training shirt. Now you'll notice that they've got this fence, and you hear that? Can you hear that? Did you see that guy in the front? The cameras lifting up this fence separating the pro-Trump versus the anti. I mean, what are you going to do with it? Look at that. Look at the guy here. It's incredible. The guy with the yellow, what's he covering himself for? What a zoo. Look, can you imagine that? The yellow ducky. I mean, it's all a contrived psyops. This guy's smirking the whole time, the guy with the dark glasses. I mean, what do you... Look at... Pushing him back. The F-bomb everywhere. Here are the two Jews, right here. The cops in the back play the sirens. The horn, I mean, right straight out of the... There he is, there's the press. Right straight out of the CIA playbook, Mossad playbook, actually. Look at the camera here. The yellow ducky guy. These here. Enough of this. 1776. There he goes off. So, we got some screen captures. Here you have the guy smirking, and then you have the big-time police protection at the people's expense. And now the vulnerable, gullible goy have coughed up God knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars on the basis of these heroes. As soon as you see the word hero and Good Samaritan, forget it's a hoax. And so here the yellow ducky guy, the horn person, I mean, the just complete noise, makes so much noise that nobody will think and look. And then here's the, yeah, buddy, here's the Trump side, here's the ant. I mean, I don't know what these, but look at, hey, baby, just a total scam and a fake.
All right, folks, you've seen the video presentations. You now can see the pattern, the history of terror. It began in the Middle East, and it began prior to the recognition of that state that calls itself Israel and the regathering of what is called Israel from the Old Covenant. Now, again, we stress to you, what we have there are two sets of figs in Jerusalem. City of Jerusalem was taken in 1948 and now is declared the capital, though the United States Senate has already, by a vote of, I believe, 95-0. There were a couple of abstentions to move the United States Embassy to Jerusalem. Trump said the time is not right because he doesn't have much time to go, undoubtedly, before he's taken down. But that city is considered by Judaism today to be their capital. We, of course, know in the Bible that it will be the epicenter of one world control in these days and is, right now, the epicenter of one world global economic, global military, global political, global academic, and media control, and most importantly, the other hidden dynasty spoken of by the prophet Zechariah, the religious community. Satan will come in Jerusalem in the temple promising that he is Christ's return. You don't want to fall for him, the false Jesus. He's the false Messiah. Don't embrace him and don't believe him if you're still in a flesh body. See, when Jesus comes, the real Jesus, you will not be in that flesh body. You will be transformed in the twinkling of an eye into a new spiritual body. All of us, the good, the bad, and the ugly, will be in that body when Jesus, the real Jesus, returns. Meanwhile, now you've learned something new today. Take it to the bank and be prepared for more terror and real terror to come in the days just ahead. Goodbye. Rick Adams saying goodbye, and Yahweh bless his elect.